So guys, what is listener? Any idea what is listeners in TestNG? Disha, Sitara, any idea about listeners?
No.
As you said, basically it would listen to some particular event, or maybe it would customize some reports or generate reports.
Yep, correct. So listeners are, as the name suggests, it listens to the particular event, right? And then they basis the result, they behave accordingly, right? So you can customize the behavior, right? So that is the purpose of TestNG listeners, right? Those are interfaces in TestNG, and they have some predefined methods, right? So you remember the interfaces part, there are some methods only in which you need to implement in your own way, right? So you can customize
Yes.
customize those methods in the way you want, right? So as the name says, listeners are listeners, I mean, are and I mean, listeners can listen to certain event and behave accordingly, right? We have many listeners in TestNG, but we will discuss about 2-3 listeners because those are kind of very important. So listener is an interface which has many methods which you can customize to as per your requirement, right? So I am coming to that point, what all listeners we have, but we will be covering this test listener and then how to retry field test cases, right? So for this also we can use do that using listeners, and remaining all listeners you can explore when there are many, but not many, all the listeners are useful. Okay, and from interview point of view also, I mean, they stick to only these two, so they don't go into that detail, right? So when I say what all listeners we have, so there is a list of listeners, right? So we have I annotation transformer. Let me go to their website, their official website. Yeah, so these are the TestNG listeners. Can you see this TestNG listeners? There are several interfaces that allow you to modify TestNG behavior. These interfaces are broadly called TestNG listeners, and here are few listeners. Okay, so these are the few listeners you can refer. Sorry. Okay, I annotation transformer, I annotation transformer 2, I hookable, I invoked method listener, I method interceptor, I reporter, I suite listener, I test listener. Okay, so we will be talking about the I test listener first, and then we will see how we can run the field test cases again. Okay, how we can retry the field test cases again. Okay, so for that, let me create a class here, and I will use the new project only this time. So let me create a class here. Let's say listener class. Okay, and yeah, and listener class will implement this I test listener, and this I have to import from I have to import from TestNG is there, right? But I think the libraries are not there. So that is the reason it is. Just give me a minute. Okay, let's do this here only. Otherwise, it would be like kind of rework. So let me close this. Okay, so I am having one listener class here, which I already created, and let me delete this all. So this is the listener class, and let me delete this all also. So it would be like we are starting from scratch, right? So iTest listener is an interface, right, which I have to import from TestNG, and there are some methods in this listener interface. If you go to this description here, you will see the methods, right? So default void on test start, on test success, on test failure, on test skipped, and all. I mean, there are some 6 7 methods which can you can implement in your own way. So I can copy the methods from here. I test listener, and then 1 second, Java doc. Okay, so let's say I'm taking the 3 methods from here. So I'm getting the 3 methods from this iTest listener interface. On test failure, on test skipped, and the third method is on test success. Okay, so this will be invoked automatically. This will be invoked when your test is failed, or when your test is passed, or when your test is skipped, right? So we will have to implement, we will have to add that this listener class at the suite level, and whenever you are running your test case, this listener will be invoked automatically, right? So this iTest result is a the parameter which you have to import from again iTest result, and here along with this you can just define any of your parameter, right? So let's say result, I'm giving the result, and here also I'm giving the result, and here also I'm giving the result. Now I can customize this method according to my need. So let's say on every test failure, I want to see the message on the console that my test failed, and then with this result I can get the name, or the other methods are also there which will give you the name of the method, that which method got failed, right? So this result dot get name will get the name of the method which got failed. So my test failed with the method name, and method name is something like this. Okay, so this will be triggered on every test failure, and this on test skipped would be triggered on every test once it is skipped, right? So for this also I can customize my method output, something like my test skipped, and the method name is result dot get name. So it will give the method name. Okay, and then then on every success you can just print the method, you can just print the message that my test got passed, and the method name is plus result dot get name. Okay, so these three I'm implementing as of now. There are others also, other methods also, which we can see from here, right? So I test listener, and then if you go here on test start, on test start is also there, and what else? And then on test success we have added, on test failure we have added, on test script we have added, on test fail but within success percentage, on test fail within time, on test on start, on finish. Okay, so I can implement this also, like on test start. So on test start, let's copy this and paste on test. Okay, and then I say that I can print that my test started, even though it is failed, but you will see that your test code started, right? Okay, and then let's say I am having some methods here, and the method must be from, let's say I'm taking this. Let me take this only because it has couple of methods. Okay, and then let me remove this all. Mix HDFC. So before test and after test, and I am having two methods. One is for verifying the HDFC title, and another one is for verifying the American Express title, right? And I will have to implement the listeners at the suite level. So I will go to my suite. Let's go to this suite and do some changes here. So let me remove this tag first, and your listener is here. Test name, let's say basic check, and what is your class name is TestNG demo 2, and browser. Anyways, it is not needed because we are already having the browser properties there. And then listeners, I will have to add tags here, listeners, right? So the opening tag and the closing tag, and I will have to specify what is the class name which implements the listener basically. So basics dot listeners class, right? So this is in basics package, and listeners is a class name. Right. So let me close this also and this also. Okay, so as of now my test would be passed, right? Because I'm not making that fail, right? And then let's see what exactly it is giving as output. Okay, so let's run this. Run as TestNG suite. So driver instantiated, my test started, and method name is this. It is so for the first method, the driver was instantiated, and my test started, right? So we have put one listener here on my test start. So it has given the name as Amex title verify, and then what it printed is mx is printed. Mx is printed for what? Yeah, so this one is mx is printed.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, and then my test got passed and method name is this. So my test got passed, right? And then the second test started, method name is this, HDFC title verify. And then HDFC bank got printed and then my test got filled and this is the method name, right? So you are getting this, these lines, right? My test started and method name, my test got passed, and all that you are getting from the listeners class, right? So this is how it works. Getting it? So one test case was passed and one test case was failed here, right? So I could see on test start every time and on test success and on test failed, right? So let's say I am making this, I am trying to use this also on test skip. So how can I skip the test? Any idea, guys?
Yeah,
Because
so we can use excludes
excludes, okay.
in XML file.
Okay. So what about depends on method?
In XML file.
Yeah, exclude is also fine. So let's try with this depends on method. Depends on method this, and then anyways it is getting failed only, right? Not sure why it is failing, but it is getting failed. So it should be skipped from execution. Okay. So let me remove these two lines. Otherwise it is, we are getting too much output. And this driver instantiation is also not required. Okay, so now it looks simple. And save TestNG, run as TestNG suite. Okay, so if I go to console, my test started, then test failed, my test started, and then test skipped. Okay. So one was failed and one was skipped. Getting it, Disha?
Yeah.
Yeah. So very simple to implement listeners, right? They can listen to your result, and basis the implementation, they can behave accordingly, right? And this you can
Yes.
add on the suite level. The listener class you can add on the suite level, and it would be applicable for all the classes which you want to execute from this XML file.
So it is